Did you see Nick Bosa? Not just Nick Bosa, but his black teammates as well, joining him in the Trump dance while celebrating a big play on defense. When I say Trump derangement syndrome is dead in the National Football League and just I think in the sports world in general, maybe the WNBA still has it. If Megan Rapinoe comes out of retirement, maybe women's soccer will have it. But when you got Bosa and his black teammate, I think they're doing this intentionally, like to call BS. Bosa just got hit with an $11,000 fine for wearing a Trump hat. This is, to me, is his teammates rallying around him and saying, like, hey, man, this Trump derangement is bogus, BS. We don't buy it. We're not going along with it. In these NFL and just locker rooms in general, all the cosplay around Trump is dead. What a sign of progress. Hats off. And it's the San Francisco 49ers are the ones in San Francisco.
The team of Kaepernick.
The home of Kamala Harris and Willie Brown. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah, you say hats off. Obviously, the MAGA hat off. Want to correct myself real quick. That was Men on Movies with Twan. And that right there, 3 snaps in a Z formation. I mean, think about the irony of it. You're right. Not only is it in liberal Bay Area San Francisco, that team with black teammates on the franchise that had Colin Kaepernick. And by the way, I saw other college players score touchdowns doing that dance. This thing is going to hit like the Icky Shuffle. Remember the Icky Shuffle? This thing is going to spread. Oh, God, we're going to party like it's 1988 in Cincinnati. I think it's a great sign. People should have fun with it. But this is what I've always believed for a long time. A lot of the athletes who are not white, who have made it, who make money, who live in certain areas, they don't deal with the issues. They have different sets of problems, and they left certain environments behind. They're probably in alignment with a lot of Bosa's beliefs. They may not be able to admit it, or were not able to admit it, maybe until November 5.
I think it started before November 5, but it certainly has amplified since November 5. And there's a level of authenticity that has now been allowed that you got to credit Elon Musk to some degree. He's like freed the slaves in terms of like, no, you can actually be your real self. And there's no, instead of being punished over Twitter, now X, it's the goofballs with Trump derangement syndrome who are being punished. It's free speech is important. And I think what we're seeing from athletes, and you're right, Steve, college athletes are doing the Trump dance. We have been living in this fake world where, and this prisoners of censorship and all and like people are just celebrating and doing the Trump dance as a way of celebrating the freedom that we have had restored.
Well, was it 6-8 months ago you and I did nearly a full show on the woke era being over? This is it. This is the outgrowth of the woke era is over, and I do think it's because of Elon Musk. I think you got to finally hear reasonable voices. We've seen there could have been 2, wouldn't have quite been George Floyd's, but there's been at least 2 shootings that, without being stomped out on Twitter, may go national recently. And look,
let's be honest. The insurance model is broken. Crowd Health puts your health care back in your hands. Use the promo code FEARLESS at joincrowdhealth.com. That's joincrowdhealth.com, promo code FEARLESS.
Look, it's just the hard truth of it. Black people get caught up in these race hoax shootings and they can't see straight, and then Donald Trump is to blame and you're not allowed to talk, and that is what happened. Whereas you look at the values, and particularly we've been in locker rooms, Jason, a lot of these guys agree with everything Donald Trump is and says, and yet George Floyd makes it so he's untouchable. All that's gone. And I think it's largely because of Twitter. This woke era is over.
Yeah.
Tell me this, though. Now that Trump is back in office and back in power, maybe the next fake George Floyd deal will catch light because you can blame it on Trump.
Well, look, you can blame it on whoever you want. I think the Twitter point is the main one. I don't know. When did Elon buy it? 22?
Yeah.
I think it's 22. Okay. So if you could have seen that toxicology report in real time and it wouldn't have been suppressed, what happens with George Floyd? If you could have actually had the guy with 200 million followers would be the guy who's pointing it out and community noted on all these posts, would it have spread like wildfire? Because we've been talking about this. The legacy media is dying every single day, a very slow death. And so now Facebook's had to get in alignment. They're not censoring as much. You, by the way, have Trump in, and he's already done a video saying, we're going to reshape Section 230 right now, and all these rights and privileges that you've had as publishers, you're not going to have that if you continue to censor. So I think it's going to be a different game. I mean, Trump was playing catch up forever the first time, and everybody was against him. Now he's actually going to put laws in place where people consume the majority of their news to stop that from happening.
Jason,
Steve,
truly believe.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I think Elon Musk will go down as one of the greatest African Americans of all time. And, it is interesting when I see the echo chamber that the liberal media industry is going through. I actually saw in one of these panels where they said, the problem is, and they're like, yeah, what? There's just no left-wing media outlets. Really? You mean all you guys at MSNBC, CNN? I mean, just about every mainstream outlet. You're telling me that there's no place for liberals or Democrats to amplify their message. And what they're really afraid of is that the YouTube content creator, pioneers like Mark Dice, are actually more powerful and more influential than legacy media. And TJ, you talk about amplifying of certain messages or stomping out lies. They are still trying to avert, because this is now Veterans Day, how Donald Trump supposedly said all veterans are suckers and losers and blah, blah, blah. 2 years ago, you could not debunk that. Now, I see 50 posts, people saying John Bolton never said that. And it just absolutely puts a bucket of water on that small flame and it dies. That was not available about 3 years ago.
Yeah. As someone who identified and argued probably starting in 2011, 12, or maybe 13, like, hey man, Twitter is the problem. Twitter is where all lies go to be confirmed as truth. It's glorious. The domino effect, the repercussions of Elon Musk taking over Twitter and changing its direction. It's incredible. That it's exactly what I thought. I remember I put out that video about Colin Kaepernick and which world do you live in, the real world or this matrix that they built over social media. And in this matrix, black men are just getting shot at an incredible rate by the police, but in real life, it's just not happening. And we have returned to that level of sanity. And maybe that's I hope people just realize how valuable freedom is, because the left has been arguing trade freedom for safety. That has been their argument for the last decade, or if not longer. In order to be, oh my God, you might get offended if you hear someone say this or say that. And if you get offended, you could die. It's an incurable disease. It's just like cancer. You're offended. And we're finally getting back to, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never harm me. And that has allowed people to be themselves. And we do have Elon Musk to thank for it. I don't know if they have a solution to send it back the other way. This whole conversation reminds me, and I want to tell you guys, we're not going to discuss it on this show. We may discuss it later this week, but I just wrote a whole column about using racism as a way to police human thought and human actions, and how that's what this election really signified, is that people are done and don't care about being called racist or Uncle Toms or whatever, and that's. I don't want to blow the whole thing. I think tomorrow or Wednesday we'll talk about this column that I wrote and its impact and just why the election transpired the way that it did. And it's white women in particular that have said, you know what, I'm not going to accept you calling my son that I birthed, nurtured, and developed. You're not going to call him racist. You're not going to smear his reputation based on his skin color. And I'm telling you, Elon paved the way for women to have that type of courage. And you know, I'm rambling and going off on a tangent. Like what you saw? Hit that like button, subscribe, and check out the full episode by clicking the link below.